Hello, my name is Bo from WorkingHandsFree.com. Today we're going to review the YUMQUA Y 10L. It's a handheld wireless laser pointer trackball mouse for left and right-handed users.
Here's an overview of what we'll discuss today. This is the best of the 10 mice we tried. It's the YUMQUA Y 10L. First, we'll explain what features you can expect if you buy it, and why we bought it in the first place. Second, we'll go into depth of the pros and cons of our favorite mouse compared to the Aegis and the Elecom mouse. We'll also clarify the pros and cons for the different YUMQUA mice and explain which one might be best suited for your needs. We recommend the Y10L, but each may be suited to different needs, such as if you're a student, if you travel, if you do presentations, or if you have a Mac versus a Windows. Lastly, we'll compare our favorite mouse to the many other mice that we've tried, and some of these mice may actually be better suited for you based on the size of your hands or your other specific needs. So, first let's get into the features of our favorite mouse.
So again, this is the Y10L version on the back. You can see it is wireless, so it doesn't require the wire like the travel version of the Aegis. You just have this little dongle here. You can plug it into your Mac or Windows computer. And there's these AAA batteries in the bottom here. The left click is right here, so you just click on something. There's the right click, both these are right click. There's a nice scroll ball, a trackball to move around your mouse. And then there's a laser pointer here, which is this one. And this one you can just kind of customize it to be something. I don't really use this button much, but you could customize it to be something else. So I love this mouse. I will say it is ergonomic. I use this mouse every single day. I have gone through so many mice, and this is the one that I have ended up using the most often. Today we're going to compare it to this. This is the Elecom EXG. It's a Japanese mouse. I actually really like this. And then this is a travel version of the Aegis mouse. This is the FDM G51. So we're going to compare it to these two today. And that's because of all the mice that I've tried. I've tried the AbleNet mouse, which is great for people who are disabled or they have issues with motor functions. I've tried the Kenningson trackball mice, which have the giant trackballs. I've tried just so many different mice, as well as the Logitech mice, and these are the ones that I actually ended up keeping, and this is the one that I end up using on a most daily basis. I have had really bad pain in my arms. It's like a repetitive stress injury. I've had a combination of carpal tunnel as well as additionally tennis elbow, which is bilateral epicondylitis, which means I had pain in my palm, my wrist, up here, on my elbow, basically all over my arm and on both of my arms, and it was so painful. I just really wanted to find something that I could use that would be pain-free, that would be great for small hands, and that maybe I could put in my lap if I'm using voice dictation software, for example, to not have to use the keyboard, because that also hurt my elbow.
So what are the main pros and cons of this YUMQUA Y 10L mouse? Well, I'll be going more into depth for each of these points, but you can take a screenshot now if you like. As I go through the pros and cons, I'll be demonstrating compared to the Elecom and the Aegis mouse. And at the end, I will also do a really useful comparison for the different versions of the YUMQUA mice and the pros and cons of each version.
So first of all, the hugest pro is that this mouse caused me the least pain on a long-term basis. So I used all these mice for about 5 months or so, along with many other mice that I tried that I used for long term. And this one caused me the least pain. I love that I can switch left to right-handed. And I love that I can put it in my lap, or I can kind of like put it on the desktop here. So in general, it caused me the least pain because I could switch up the different positions that I was using it. And just in general, it just caused the least pain on a long-term basis. Secondly, my favorite thing about this trackball is that it's the smallest one available. It's the smallest diameter trackball, and I found it's the smallest size this way of most any mice that I could find. I did also try a small normal mouse where you go like this. That's very tiny, but even that one caused pain. So this is the smallest pain-free or least pain mouse that I could find. I mean, the trackball is even smaller than this Elecom version. It's even smaller, as you can see. Also, if you want to see the sizing of this thing, you can kind of see the sizing based on there with the ruler. This is in inches. It's also the smallest width available in general for ergonomics. So to demonstrate this essentially with this Elecom, if I put my hand here, so I love this thing. I wish they would sell it in extra small size. I would totally buy it because I love this thing. But when I put my hand on here, it stretches my fingers. It hurts my palm, it hurts my wrist, and it hurts. I mean, I love this thing, but it's great. I love the ball. I mean, it's great. It hurts my palm and my wrist, and I wish they would make it smaller. I need my fingers to be nearby each other. And so that's what was great about this one. What's great about the small size is all these fingers are together. They're not being stretched apart. It just feels like it doesn't hurt as much. That's the major plus about this being small. Third of all is, in terms of the pros, it's ergonomic. I kind of already mentioned this, but I'm mentioning it just again. It is indeed ergonomic. It reduced the pain in my elbow and wrist when I used it as compared to these other mice, especially these kinds of mice, and just all the other Kenningsing trackball, the larger trackballs. They weren't as ergonomic. They hurt. They made my condition worse. Another plus about this one is the scroll wheel. I just really like the scroll wheel. This travel version, this is the Aegis version, it's kind of similar. It just doesn't have this section right here. It doesn't have the scroll wheel. You can press here and scroll like this, but in terms of less pain when scrolling, and because you have to scroll so often when you're surfing the web and things like that, I just love using the scroll wheel. It's so smooth, it works. You can use it on Word documents, you can use it on Excel, on Google Chrome, Firefox, whatever. It works great on both Windows and Mac. I just like it. I also really like this trackball. It's small and it's very smooth. Lastly, I like these extra buttons here. You can also buy another version of this, which is the Aegis Y-10W. So the Y-10W version is just like this. It looks exactly the same. The only difference is these buttons are customizable instead of having the laser pointer. So if you're going to be presenting things or in your in the workforce, this is a good one to get, the laser pointer version, which is the YUMQUA version. But if you're just a student, maybe you could consider getting the one that has the customizable buttons here, which is the Aegis Y-10W. Cons. So what are the main cons of this thing that I wish were better? Well, the biggest problem with this thing is the battery runs out. In 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, but usually 1 week, the battery will just run out. It's not that bad. I mean, I've just learned to have a lot of extra AAA batteries in my backpack at the ready. So it's actually not that much of a pain as long as you're prepared for that. Also, it does have this on-off button here. So if you turn it off, it'll last for like weeks. I barely notice. It barely dies when you turn it off, but I just forget so often to turn it off, and so it dies anyway. And so I wish it would last longer, but I guess it's not that bad. I mean, I love that it's wire-free. So yeah, it's a downside. But please just remember to keep extra batteries in case they run out, and make sure to turn it off. Also, another thing with this mouse is if you suddenly notice that it stops working, it's not because this thing broke. Usually it's because, there's so many times where it was off because I was trying to save the battery, and I would, go like this, and suddenly it wouldn't work. The mouse wouldn't be working, and I'd be like, what's going on? Is it broken? I tried to return one. Just turn on the on button, switch out the AAA battery because it might have gone dead, and it will work totally fine. And it holds up really well from what I can tell, as long as you make sure that it's on and you make sure the battery is fresh. So that's the key with using this sort of long-term basis. Another con of this is that it's a little bit finicky with Mac. All of these work really well with both Mac and PC Windows. Some of them may even work on Linux or other things. I haven't really tried those, but I've used this on both Mac and Windows, all these. And with Mac, the problem is it works great, but for the wireless versions, sometimes if you're farther away from your Mac computer, like a laptop, let's say, it'll get a little finicky. So like you'll move the trackball a little bit, and the mouse on your screen won't move. but then you move it again and the mouse will move. So sometimes it just kind of stops working, but then it works again immediately. And it can be a little bit annoying sometimes. And so if you have a Mac, I would suggest maybe getting the wired version that looks just like this, but the wired version, because this one and the wired versions, they work seamless on both Windows and Mac. So especially for Mac, if you have a Mac laptop and you're, a student and you're going to class, you have this little dongle, it can fall apart, in your, fall off. You're trying to store it in your backpack. And so having this wired version, it's more reliable on Mac on a more long-term basis. And you're not going to forget this little dongle. It has a dongle here. I mean, you can get one of these Mac connectors here for laptops, but then you don't forget it. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this guy. You may want this because there's less chunkiness here. So sometimes I like to switch between them and use this one because I can kind of like curve my hand around it a little more. I mean, I still wish there was something there, but it's not as bulky. So sometimes I'll switch between these two, sort of pain-free for my wrist. But mostly I stick with this one, especially because when I'm on the table, I can use it on my lap, right, like this, la la la, scroll on both hands in my lap, but I can also put on the table like this, and I can kind of move it around like this, and this feels ergonomic for me. I can kind of lift this up here and kind of scroll around like this on the table, and I just like that. And because it has this chunk here, I'm able to do that. Although I wish it were thinner. I wish this were a little bit thinner. So if you have a Mac, I actually would suggest getting two of them. These are pretty cheap. Get one of these, get one of these. If you like this chunk here better, get one of these that's wired if you have a Mac. But honestly, you could just get all of them and kind of try them out and return them. That's kind of what I did. Let's see, another con about this thing is that, like I was saying before, this dongle here, there's this magnetic strip here, so you can store it here, which is great if you're just using it on the desktop in your lap and you're just leaving it for a while and you want to like store it somewhere. It doesn't come off. I mean, it does if you really shake it, but it's pretty much fine. It doesn't come off that bad. It's just sitting here, right? But if it's in your backpack, it's probably gonna like brush and fall off. And so I really, really wish, if anyone is watching this who's a maker of this device, I really wish you guys would make something more like this guy. As you can see, the USB is in this nice little chunk here, and it won't fall out in your backpack. I mean, if you put it in, it doesn't fall out like this. Things won't brush off, like it really doesn't fall out. And I really wish this mouse could be made so that this thing would stay better. Maybe like with some kind of strap. I mean, I wouldn't sacrifice the ergonomicness. I mean, I love that this distance is so small. I would even make it like smaller. Well, I mean, it's fine. I like it how it is. But I just wish they could put this dongle in here somewhere. Stick it in here, the side, or down the bottom. I mean, you can add more chunk here just to put this stuff in there. I would really love that. So another feature request or downside is that because I use so many mice and so many accessibility tools, I have a lot of dongles, and they end up looking all the same. You'll have a lot of them. You'll be like, which one is for which? And you might mix them up, or if you travel and you bring the wrong one, oopsie. So I really wish that this company would make a dongle that has some writing on it. As you can see, the Microsoft Sculpt USB, as well as this guy, they just have some writing on the end. Or maybe you could just even do some stripes. So I really wish this guy would have some stripes or writing or anything so you can differentiate the little dongle between your other dongles that you might have. I mean, it would just be it's such a simple thing, but I would just love that so much. So I love when they have these little labels on the bottom. As you can see, this guy, I think they have some little, like, as you can see, it's like these little ridges and stuff. So I don't know, it just helps you tell apart your little USBs. So in summary, the pros are, it gave me the least pain for the most long term, and it's the best for small hands. It's the smallest trackball available, and it sort of has the smallest width of most any mouse that I've found. It is indeed ergonomic. It reduced the pain in my sort of elbow area as well as my wrist area for the most part. Still some slight wrist pain, but you can put it in your lap and just make sure that this is at a nice angle instead of like this. Sometimes I find if you hold it in the air, it won't be ergonomic for you actually. But if you put it in your lap or on the desk like this, you know, just make sure that your wrist is straight, and then it's totally ergonomic. I like the scroll wheel. It has a nice trackball. I like these buttons. I like either the laser pointer or the extras as sort of shortcuts if you want to shortcut them. Main cons: the battery runs out, so make sure you buy lots of extra AAA batteries, or get the wired version if you're going to be traveling, or if you just don't want to deal with that. Other downside is for Mac, it's sometimes a little bit finicky, in which case I would go with a wired version that looks just like this, but with the wired version, just so that it's more reliable. Or you can get a combination, get multiple of them for Mac, the wired and the wireless, and see which one you prefer. And the last con is that you might lose the dongle in your backpack, so make sure to put everything in like plastic baggie if you're going to be transporting it, so that this thing can roam free in the plastic baggie and you won't lose it. In summary, this is the mouse that I use every single day. Out of the many, many mice that I have gone through, these are the ones that I ended up keeping. I like these. This one provides me with pain though, so I wish that I made it smaller. I would buy it smaller. This one I do use some of the time because it's wired, so it's reliable for travel, or just if your battery dies and you don't have an extra battery. It's a nice backup. So overall, I use this every day. I like it better than all these other mouses, including the AbleNet trackball, the Kensington trackball mouse. I've tried both the red and the blue types of sort of the square version and the oblong version of the Kensington trackball mice. I've tried the Logitech mice. I haven't tried the vertical mice yet, so I'll do reviews later for that. But I've just tried so many mice, and this one ended up being the least painful for me while I was recovering from my arm injury. So I prefer this mouse. I would totally buy this mouse if you have small hands like I do. And if you find that other mice give you pain, as you can see, this is the size of my palm approximately. If you have a hand that's really small, definitely buy this thing. Definitely at least want to try it. It's pretty cheap too. Definitely also buy it if you're using voice dictation, like Mac voice control, Dragon for Windows, Windows speech recognition. If you're using any kind of voice or speech recognition for your computer and your work, because for me, I mean, it hurt to use a keyboard. So if you don't want to use a keyboard and you don't even have a keyboard and you're just using your voice to navigate on your computer for accessibility purposes, or if you have a disability or an injury, then I would totally suggest getting this guy as like a backup. If you need to use your mouse, just use it some of the time. It's my personal go-to if you're not using keyboard, because you can hold it in your lap with two hands, left hand, right hand, any which way, on here, like this, like that. You can hold it however which way. It's really versatile and very painless for the most part, except for some wrist pain, which could be fixed if they made it a little bit smaller this way. And again, in terms of summary, if you're a Mac user, all of these will work on the Mac, and all of these will work on the Windows computer. But if you're a Mac user, invest in one of the wired versions to begin with, or buy both a wired version and a non-wired version, just so that you have both, so that you can have reliability as well as wirelessness. And if you travel, you know, get one of these. Or if you're a student and you're putting it in your backpack, you might want to get one of these as sort of a backup. So that's pretty much it. Please contact me if you want me to review any additional mice or devices. I'd be happy to do that for you guys. Please check out our website at workinghandsfree.com for more tutorials and videos, customer reviews. We provide customer reviews of ergonomic mice, as well as keyboards that are ergonomic, as well as other accessibility tools, accessibility software. We have tutorials as well for the voice dictation and speech recognition, that kind of software. I also include demos of how I work hands-free, or nearly hands-free, at my computer. For example, how do I answer email without my hands, hands-free, with no mouse and no keyboard? How do you do that? If you're recovering from an injury in your arms, or if you're permanently disabled, how do you do your work without any tools other than software on your computer? No mouse, no keyboard. Also, you can buy code, custom commands and voice commands and things from my website, or you can donate to my website. I don't track email addresses. We're just a nonprofit, so any purchases or donations will go to keep my website running and buying new devices and software to make reviews and tutorials for you. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck with your mouse finding adventure.